So we do not recommend our podcast for children under the age of 13.
And while we respect the victims and their families involved in these tragic cases,
we're also going to be critical of mistakes that are made during the investigations.
And we're going to use dark humor to express ourselves now and then.
So with that said, this podcast may not be for everyone.
And that's okay. We're glad you're here checking us out.
And if you've made it this far, welcome to the Unsung Murder Ballads family. And follow us on Instagram at Unsung Murder Ballads if you want to talk to us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. This is episode 90. I am Janus Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
Well, all right. So tonight we have something. I'm not even going to, I'm going to wait to tell you what this is all about. I'm going to do the teaser first because it's not a very long teaser.
All right. Well, let's go.
All right. So it was April of 1881.
Oh, girl.
Yeah. We're
way the fuck back today.
In the New Mexico territory. It's not even a state yet.
Yeah, true. But way back.
Way back. After years of hunting down the fugitive standing before him, the judge was finally able to pass down justice.
Come on, Valjean, let's go.
The defendant had been wanted for numerous crimes, not the least of which being cattle rustling and murder.
What's cattle rustling? Like I'm fucking with the cattle?
No, cattle rustling. No, that would be bestiality. No,
I meant fucking with as in like I'm.
Oh.
I'm messing with them, you know?
No, cattle rustling is where like you steal entire herds of cattle.
Oh.
You redirect them to another property kind of thing.
You really rustle them up. Okay,
yes,
got you.
Yes. So judgment had now come, and now the sentencing could be handed down. The judge said to this man that he should be hung by the neck until he be dead, dead, dead. And
damn, so 3 life sentences.
And legend has it that this man, William H. Bonney, responded with, "Then you can go to hell, hell, hell."
Wow, is this Bonnie and Clyde?
No, interesting. Bonney is the woman's first name in Bonnie and Clyde.
I'm so illiterate.
It's okay, but this next section will tell you exactly who it is.
Okay, cool.
William H. Bonney was born on September 17th or November 23rd, 1859, depending on your source.
Huh.
His birth name was Henry McCarty, but the name he is truly famous for is Billy the Kid.
Oh, Billy the Kid.
There you go. I knew you'd know him eventually.
Yeah, because it's don't they reference him in UHF?
Maybe. It's been so long since I've seen that one, I'm not sure.
Me too. That's a real bit. I saw it a couple years ago, and it did not age well, but I don't care.
No, but it's super hokey. Yeah, like
it's a classic.
A lot of Weird Al's songs didn't really age well, you know?
Yeah.
But so for me, like, so right now there is a TV series called Billy the Kid. I think it's on season 2. It's on a station, like a streaming service I don't pay for, so I haven't watched it yet. But I remember Billy the Kid from 2 other sources. One of them being the 2 Young Guns movies, which Emilio Estevez played Billy the Kid, and it was amazing. It was so good. And he's also in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, a more comedic version. So that always sticks out in my head.
You know what? That's what I'm thinking of, not UHF.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, where he's at the mall and he's got the wanted poster and he's standing there with Socrates and
yeah.
So funny.
I was just thinking of old movies, you know what I'm saying?
Understood. But no, I was like UHF I could totally see not aging well with the jokes that he did, but yes.
Yeah, a lot of them are the racist tropes are not not so cute, but
you mean the surprise closet?
Yeah, that among many yeah. You might be surprised.
Yes.
I was like, oh yeah, the surprise closet, not good.
No, not at all. Not at all. But you know what? It was the times, and it wasn't like he did it maliciously. You know, so you can still kind of forgive him for it. It's like the Fat song instead of Michael.
Right. It's like, sometimes things just don't age well.
Right.
We can go.
Yeah.
That was a relic.
Yes, it was. All right, so here we go. Now I'm going to refer to him as Henry for the early part of his years because he was born Henry McCarty. But once he changes his name to William Bonney, that's when I'll start referring to him as Bonney. I
Mm-hmm.
won't refer to him as Billy the Kid very often just because that's a lot to say as I'm trying to move along.
Mm-hmm.
So Henry was born to parents of Irish Catholic ancestry, Catherine Devine and Patrick McCarty in New York City.
Oh, wow. So he's really traversing.
Yes. Now, while the year of his birth is confirmed as 1859, the exact date has been disputed, as we already mentioned, as well as exactly where he was born, like the place of his birth.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the sucky part of this time period, is nobody was keeping track.
Mm-hmm.
Census records do indicate that his younger brother, Joseph McCarty, was born in 1863. So we have another, pinpoint there at least.
Mm-hmm.
Now, following the death of her husband, Catherine McCarty and her sons moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, where she met a man by the name of William Henry Harrison Antrim, which is a lot to say.
That's quite a name. Okay.
Now, the McCarty family then moved with Antrim to Wichita, Kansas in 1870.
Not Wichita again.
I know, right? Everything keeps coming back around. It's weird.
God.
And then they moved again a few years later after Catherine married Antrim in 1873 when they moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and the boys served as witnesses at their wedding. Shortly after, they moved again to from Santa Fe to Silver City in New Mexico, and Henry's brother Joseph took on the Antrim surname. Soon after, Catherine became ill from tuberculosis, and William Antrim abandoned the family.
Oh, shit.
So
Classic.
so taking on the surname was kind of stupid on the other guy's part.
Yeah, but here we are. We live and we learn.
Right. I mean, and he was a kid, so I'm sure he probably looked up to him as a father at that point.
Yeah.
So when Catherine died on September 16th of 1874, the two boys became orphans, and Henry was 14 at that time.
Damn.
An owner of a boarding house named Sarah Brown gave Henry room and board in exchange for work. So he's 14 and he's working, which is probably accurate for the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's Industrial Revolution ass shit.
Yeah, or just before it? No, yeah, I don't remember.
Well,
Somewhere in that
that's around the
ballpark.
time, yeah.
But this is New Mexico territory, so they're not actually
True.
benefiting from it. The railroads are just getting there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
In 1875, Henry was caught stealing food, and 10 days later, he and another boy named George Schaefer robbed a Chinese laundry, stealing clothing and 2 pistols.
Uh-oh. He's already getting in trouble.
At 15 years old. Yep. He was charged with theft and he was jailed, but he escaped 2 days later and became a fugitive. And this was reported in the Silver City Herald the next day, and this is the first ever story to be published about Billy the Kid.
Oh, interesting.
Now, Henry located his stepfather and stayed with him until William Antrim eventually threw him out, at which point Henry went and stole some of his clothing and his guns, and
Nice.
that was the last time the two would ever see each other.
Let's go. Get your fucking stepfather.
Henry then traveled to southeastern Arizona, which was still a territory at the time, where he worked as a ranch hand, and he gambled his wages in nearby gaming houses. So again, this just gives me all the country western, movie vibes.
Yeah, the cowboy vibes are there.
Yep. So in 1876, he was hired as a ranch hand by a well-known rancher named Henry Hooker.
What a last name.
I know, that's an unfortunate one, yeah. During this time, he became acquainted with a man named John Mackey, a Scottish-born criminal and former U.S. cavalry pirate who, following...
Like what?
Yeah, he was in the cavalry, and he operated as a pirate, basically robbing
both,
people.
not at the same time. The U.S. was commissioning pirates.
Yes, no, they weren't. But
in New Mexico.
Yes, right? So following his discharge, he remained near that U.S. Army post at Camp Grant in Arizona, and the two men, Henry and this guy, started stealing horses from local soldiers. Which I have to say, having served in the military, you lose a piece of equipment and you are fucked.
These guys are getting fucked over.
You lose your horse.
Sorry, I lost my horse.
It's like losing your car.
Yeah, literally.
At this point, Henry became known as Kid Antrim because of his youth, his slight build, his clean-shaven appearance, and his personality. And it was in 1877 that he began referring to himself by the name William H. Bonney.
Where's the Bonney coming from?
I don't know. I think he just took it out, like pulled it out of thin air or something. Maybe he was called like a Bonnie Lass by like an Irishman or something. I'm not sure.
Oh, gotcha.
Like, you know what I mean? Because especially back in the day, men like to make fun of young boys as being girly.
True.
You know, that's the only thing I can come up with. But he decided to go with William H. Bonney, which is how everybody knows his name. I thought you were going to get it from that name when I said it the first time. So on August 17th, 1877, Bonney was at a saloon in the village of Bonita where he got into an argument with a man named Francis P. Cahill, a blacksmith who had bullied him on more than one occasion, calling him a pimp, which is such a weird term to use in the 1870s.
Yeah, it's like also like that. Huh. That's bullying.
Yeah, apparently that's bullying.
Feels like a criminal would be like, "Fuck yeah, dude." I feel like that's such like a, I don't know.
I don't think being called a pimp became cool until the 1980s, like 100 years later.
Fair enough.
So Bonney turned to Cahill and called him a son of a bitch, whereupon Cahill threw Bonney to the floor and the two struggled for Bonney's revolver. So at this point, Bonney shot and killed Cahill.
Oh,
and a
murder.
And a witness said that Billy had no choice. He had to use his equalizer because apparently Cahill was a much bigger guy. And Cahill died the following day, so Bonney fled. But like an idiot, he returned a few days later and was arrested by Miles Wood, the local justice of the peace. He was detained.
Funny, the justice of the peace is like an actual thing, not a person who marries people.
Yeah, we said that during the Hatfields.
Oh,
and
you're
McCoys.
right. We have said this before.
Yeah, but it is weird. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, they actually have jobs.
Yeah.
So Bonney was detained and held at the Camp Grant guardhouse, but escaped before law enforcement could actually arrive. He stole a horse and he fled.
He's really good at escaping.
You're not even going to believe the number of times this guy escapes. It's fucking phenomenal. And I got to be honest, if you go back and watch the Young Guns movies, it's not historically accurate, so to speak, but the way they portray the drama of it all is so well done.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, but so yeah, he stole a horse and he fled Arizona for the New Mexico territory. But while he was traveling, he was set upon by a group of Apaches who stole his horse, leaving him to walk the many miles to the next settlement.
Oh, get your horse stolen. That's karma.
That's
direct karma.
It's really funny. And for any of our non-U.S. listeners, an Apache is a tribe of Native Americans that live in that area of the United States. They still live there to this day, but back then there was much more hostility between the natives and the white Americans that are expanding into that area. Really brief history there.
Yes.
So at Fort Stanton, he arrived starving and near death, and Bonney went to the home of a friend and Seven Rivers Warriors gang member, John Jones, whose mother nursed him back to health.
Well, that's very nice of her.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, her son's probably this horrible criminal, so Billy the Kid probably just looks like a sweet kid in comparison.
Fair enough.
After regaining his health, Bonney went to Apache Trejo, a former army post where he joined a band of rustlers who raided herds owned by cattle magnate John Chisholm in Lincoln County. This is going to be the start of a big moment for basically the legend of Billy the Kid.
Gotcha.
After he was recognized in Silver City, his involvement with the gang was mentioned in a local newspaper. After returning to New Mexico, Bonney worked as a cowboy for English businessman and rancher John Henry Tunstall near the Rio Felix, a tributary of the Pecos River in then Lincoln County.
This is so Old West. It's very fun. It's
really funny. It's a Western. I mean, realistically, that's what it was, you know.
True.
So Tunstall and his business partner, a loyal named Alexander McSween, were opponents of an alliance formed by Irish-American businessman Lawrence Murphy, James Dolan, and John Riley. The three men had wielded an economic and political hold over Lincoln County since the early 1870s, due in part to the fact that they owned a beef contract with nearby Fort Stanton and with a well-patronized dry goods store in the town of Lincoln. They own everything, and they have that stranglehold.
Mm-hmm.
So by February of 1878, McSween, the partner of Tunstall, owed $8,000 to Dolan. And Dolan obtained a court order and asked Lincoln County Sheriff William J. Brady to attach a $40,000 worth to Tunstall's property and livestock. So to explain this, basically McSween owes Dolan $8,000, which, by the way, in today's money is $300,000.
Oh, big.
Okay,
They all that.
So because McSween and Tunstall work together, this guy goes to the sheriff and he basically says, not only do I want to get my money back from this guy, but since he operates with Tunstall, put his property on there and let me take it.
Damn.
Which apparently the sheriff let him do. And that $40,000 worth of land of Tunstall's property that was added, that value in today's money is nearly $1 million.
Damn, so he's taking that over $8,000. That's crazy.
It's crazy. But that's how corrupt this was in that area. And that's the strength and the hold that they had. So Tunstall put Bonney in charge of 9 prime horses and told him to relocate them to his ranch for safekeeping because they knew this shit was coming down.
Mm-hmm.
So Sheriff Brady assembled a large posse to seize Tunstall's cattle. And on February 18th in 1878, Tunstall learned that the posse was on his property and he rode out to kind of cut them off. During this encounter, one of the members of the posse shot Tunstall in the chest, knocking him off his horse.
Holy shit.
Another posse member then took Tunstall's own gun from him and shot and killed him in the back. Shot him in the back of the head and killed him.
Oof.
So it was Tunstall's murder that ignited this conflict between these two factions, and this would later become known as the Lincoln County War.
Oh shit.
After Tunstall's death, Bonney and a man named Dick Brewer swore affidavits against Brady, the sheriff, and those in his posse, and they obtained murder warrants from Lincoln County.
Murder warrants?
Yeah, obtained murder warrants from Lincoln County Justice of the Peace, John B. Wilson. Now, I had to look that up too. A murder warrant sounds much cooler than it actually is.
Oh shit.
I legit thought it was like permission to go out and kill someone, almost like a bounty. No, it's it's basically you go to the police, you go to someone in law enforcement, and they put out a warrant for someone's arrest for the crime of murder.
Oh, because they murdered someone.
Yes, it was not nearly as cool as I thought, and your reaction was.
It sounded way more fun than that.
Yeah, when you had that reaction, I'm like, that was my thought too. So on February 20th, 1878, while attempting to arrest Brady, the sheriff, and his deputies, they in turn were able to arrest Bonney and 2 other men riding with him. So this arrest warrant, this murder warrant that they had, allowed them as civilians to arrest someone else.
Damn, a true citizen's arrest.
Yes, basically. But unfortunately for them, Brady, being a sheriff with his deputies, ended up arresting them instead.
Yeah, that's fraught.
Yeah, that sucks. Because let's be honest, if someone showed up on that scene, who do you think they're going to help?
Right, like...
Yeah, that's a bad place to be.
Imagine a member of law enforcement getting in trouble. We've said this 100 million times on the show. Imagine.
Man, it never happens. Not even back then.
Not even back then.
So the Deputy U.S. Marshal Robert Windeman, a friend of Bonney, and a detachment of soldiers captured Sheriff Brady's jail guards, and they put them in the cells and released Bonney and his friend Brewer.
Well, it makes it, this like criminal justice system is so chaotic. It's like no wonder the Wild West was the Wild West.
Right, because no one's there to other than the sheriff and anyone who works for him, no one's there to really keep that jail cell safe. It looks exactly like they show in movies.
Yeah, it's just like, and it's also like anyone can arrest anyone. And it seems like chaos.
And if they can get the upper hand on you, they can throw you in a cell and take your prisoners, and there you're left. Exactly. It's the Wild West.
It is the Wild West.
Bonney then went and joined a group called the Lincoln County Regulators. Now, imagine locals joining together to do what understaffed and undermotivated law enforcement could not do. Basically, it's cowboy neighborhood watch, if you will,
Yep.
straight out of a movie, but like just that much more ridiculous in my mind because technically they're all criminals.
Yeah. At this point, it's like when everyone's a criminal, no one's a criminal.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. I guess the people that aren't committing any crimes or getting involved whatsoever are the only innocent people in the area.
Right. It's like it's all relative at that point.
So on March 9th, they captured Frank Baker and William Morton, both of whom were accused of killing Tunstall. Baker and Morton were killed while allegedly trying to escape.
Allegedly.
On April 1st, the regulators ambushed Sheriff Brady and his deputies. Bonney was wounded in the thigh during that battle, and Brady and Deputy Sheriff George Windman were killed.
At this point, it's like, man, everyone's a criminal. What is justice?
So on the morning of April 4th, 1878, a man nicknamed Buckshot, but Buckshot Roberts, and Dick Brewer were killed during a shootout at a place called Blazer's Mill. Warrants were issued for several of the participants on both sides of this war, and Bonney and 2 others were charged with killing Brady, Hindman, and Roberts, who was actually a friend of Bonney's.
Damn.
On the night of Sunday, July 14th, McSween, Tunstall's partner, and the regulators, now a group of 50 or 60 men, went to Lincoln. Yeah,
that's
right?
quite a neighborhood watch.
They went to Lincoln and they stationed themselves in town among several buildings. So at the McSween residence were Bonney, a man named Florencio Chavez, another man named Jose Chavez y Chavez, Jim French, Tom O'Folliard, and others. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to go through all their names.
Yeah, that's fair.
Another group led by a man Marvin Chavez and Doc Skurlock positioned themselves on the roof of a saloon, and other men were nearby at an adobe bunkhouse, basically waiting to ambush whoever was coming for them.
Mm-hmm.
On Tuesday, July 16th, newly appointed Sheriff George Pepin sent sharpshooters in to kill McSween and his defenders at the saloon. Pepin's men retreated once one of the snipers killed Fernando Herrera. Pepin then sent a request for assistance to Colonel Nathan Dudley, the commandant of nearby Fort Stanton. In reply to Pepin, Dudley refused to intervene, but would later arrive, basically after everything, right as everything was about to be over, with troops, but that turned the battle in favor of that group. So a gunfight broke out on Friday, July 19th. McSween's supporters gathered inside his home, and the sheriff started setting fire to the building while everybody's shooting. Bonney and the other men fled the building when all but one of the rooms were burning.
Damn.
Now, during the confusion, McSween was shot by Robert Beckwith, who was then shot and killed by Bonney.
Everyone's getting shot.
Everyone. The very few people survived this particular battle. Bonney and 3 other survivors of the Battle of Lincoln were near the Mescalero Indian Agency when an agency bookkeeper, Morris Bernstein, was murdered on August 5th, 1878. So they escape, and then they're near this area where this person dies, and then they basically all get indicted on that guy's murder.
Yep, well, that makes sense. Wrong place, wrong time.
Right, but the sad part is all the evidence point to the fact that this guy was killed by a constable. So once again, the police.
Damn.
Now, all indictments were later dismissed except for the one against William H. Bonney.
Well,
kind of tells you everything you need to know. Exactly.
Yep.
On August 5th, 1878, U.S. Marshal John Sherman informed newly appointed territorial governor and former U.S. Army General Lew Wallace that he had warrants for several men, including William H. Bonney, alias the Kid, but that he had been unable to execute those warrants owing to the disturbed condition of the affairs in that county, resulting on the acts of a desperate class of men, is how he put it.
Well,
he's not wrong. When everybody's pretty much at war with each other, how do you enforce the law?
And when you have no power as the law, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, very, very little power as the law, yeah. So Wallace issued an amnesty proclamation on November 13th, 1878, which pardoned anyone involved in the Lincoln County War since Tunstall's murder. It specifically excluded persons who had been convicted of or indicted of a crime and therefore did not give any amnesty to Bonney.
Damn.
Yeah, they want this guy.
They do. They're trying to bring him in.
So on February 18th, 1879, Bonney and his friend Tom O'Folliard were in Lincoln and watched as attorney Houston Chapman was shot and his corpse was set on fire.
Jesus. Truly lawless.
Truly. According to eyewitnesses, the pair were innocent bystanders forced at gunpoint by someone to actually witness the murder. So Bonney wrote to Governor Wallace on March 13th, 1879, with an offer to provide information on the Chapman murder in exchange for amnesty. On March 15th, Governor Wallace replied, agreeing to a secret meeting to discuss the situation. So Bonney and Wallace met in Lincoln on March 17th of that year. During that meeting and in subsequent correspondences, Wallace promised Bonney protection from his enemies and clemency if he would offer his testimony to a grand jury.
That's a good deal for him.
On March 20th, Wallace wrote to Bonney to, quote, remove all suspicion and understanding. I think it be better to put the arresting party in charge of Sheriff Kimbrell, who shall be instructed to see that no violence is used, unquote.
Doubt it.
Well, yeah, but how do you know what I mean? Like, if you really want that amnesty, that pardon, what else can you do?
No, that's true. It's true.
So Bonney responded that very day and agreed to the terms to testify and confirming Wallace's proposal for his arrest and detention in a local jail to assure his safety. So on March 21st, he let himself be captured by a posse led by Sheriff George Kimball in Lincoln County. As agreed, Bonney provided a statement about Chapman's murder and testified in court. However, after his testimony, the local district attorney refused to set him free. Still in custody several weeks later, Bonney began to suspect that Wallace had used subterfuge and would never grant him amnesty. So he escaped from the Lincoln County Jail on June 17th, 1879. He just fucking walks out somehow. I love that this guy like
gives no fucks. He just literally just leaves.
It's so funny.
It's pretty powerful.
So Bonney avoided further violence until January 10th of 1890. So about 6 to 7 months. That's when he shot and killed Joe Grant, a newcomer to the area, at Hargrove's Saloon in Fort Sumner, New Mexico. The Santa Fe Weekly New Mexican reported, quote, Billy Bonney, more extensively known as the Kid, shot and killed Joe Grant. The origin of the difficulty was not learned, unquote. According to other contemporary sources, Bonney had been warned that Grant was there intending to kill him. So Bonney walked up to Grant at the saloon and told him that he admired the guy's revolver and asked if he could examine it. And Grant gave it to him. He handed it over to him.
Clever.
So before returning the pistol, Bonney sat there and was playing with it, and he noticed that it actually only had 3 bullets in the chamber of 6. You know what I'm talking about? It's like a revolver.
Yeah.
So Bonney positioned the cylinder so that the next hammer fall would land on an empty chamber.
Smart guy.
He gave the gun back to Grant, who immediately pointed the pistol at Bonney's face and pulled the trigger. But when the gun failed to fire, Bonney pulled out his own weapon and shot Grant in the head.
Let's go.
It's so fucking funny, right?
Yeah, that's very good.
The reporter for the Las Vegas Optic quoted Bonney as saying about the encounter that it, quote, was a game of 2 and I got there first, unquote.
Well, there you go.
It's actually a really funny scene in one of the Young Guns movie. It's really good. Because he's pretending to be like a younger kid who doesn't understand what a gun is. It's really funny.
That is very funny.
In 1880, Bonney formed a friendship with a rancher named Jim Greathouse, who later introduced him to another man named Dave Rudabaugh. On November 29th, 1880, Bonney, Rudabaugh, and a man named Billy Wilson ran from a posse led by Sheriff's Deputy James Carlisle. They were cornered at Greathouse's ranch, And he told the posse they were holding Greathouse as a hostage to basically get this guy out of trouble. Carlisle offered to exchange places with Greathouse, and Bonney accepted the offer. Carlisle later attempted to escape by jumping through a window, but he was shot 3 times and killed.
Damn.
That sucks. But that's what you get for putting yourself in as the hostage.
That is true.
Just saying.
You can't just do that. That's not a good idea.
Yeah, even if it wasn't like a hoax like theirs was,
Exactly.
So as a result of the deputy being shot, a shootout ensued, but it eventually ended in a standoff, and the posse withdrew with Bonney, Rudabaugh, and Wilson riding away. A few weeks after that, Bonney, Rudabaugh, Wilson, and others rode into Fort Sumner. And what blows my mind about this is that they stay in the same area, and somehow they're not caught.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's weird. Granted, I know horses can't get that far, but there's no way I'd stay in that area if I was wanted like that.
Yeah.
But then again, they may really enjoy it.
Yeah, the thrill could be for them.
So basically, as they entered Fort Sumner, unbeknownst to them, there was a posse being led by a man by the name of Pat Garrett waiting for them. Now, Pat Garrett is an interesting character here in that a lot of sources say that he was friends with William H. Bonney before he took on the agreement to hunt him down. Yeah. The movies do a great job of basically portraying that he did it for money or he did it for a pardon. Like it was kind of a reluctant thing, but in real life, there's no way to know. And so this is not off topic, but John Bon Jovi, the singer, like the 80s rock band there, he was in Young Guns too. He had like this little cameo.
Oh, shit.
And he wrote a lot of music. He put out an entire album for this movie. And that's
really cool.
It is really cool. One of the songs is actually very popular. It's called Blaze of Glory. But
yeah, I definitely heard of that.
Yeah, and there's one where he talks about the betrayal of Pat Garrett to Billy the Kid, and it's actually one of the best songs on the album. So
very cool.
I highly recommend it. All right, where was I? So, not knowing that the posse was waiting for him, they were basically ambushed when the posse opened fire, and O'Folliard was killed, but the rest of them escaped unharmed. So on December 13th, 1880, Governor Wallace posted a $500 bounty for Bonney's capture. Pat Garrett continued his search for Bonney, and on December 23rd, Garrett and his posse captured him along with men named Pickett, Rudabaugh, and Wilson at Stinking Springs, which is a hilarious name for a place.
Yeah, that's really funny.
I want to move to Stinking Springs. So the prisoners, including Bonney, were shackled and taken to Fort Sumner and then later to Las Vegas, New Mexico, which I didn't even know was a place.
No, that's funny.
When they arrived on December 26th, they were met by crowds of curious onlookers. The following day, an armed mob gathered at the train depot before the prisoners, who were already on board the train with Garrett, departed for Santa Fe. Deputy Sheriff Romero, backed by an angry group of men, demanded that they turn over custody of Dave Rudabaugh, who during an unsuccessful escape attempt back in April of 1880, shot and killed one of their people in the process, so they wanted him.
Not as good at these escapes as good old Billy.
No, definitely not. But Garrett refused to surrender the prisoner, and a tense confrontation ensued until he agreed to let the sheriff and 2 other men accompany them to Santa Fe, where they would petition the governor to release Rudabaugh to them. So this is how crazy it is when 2 cops are fighting over one prisoner. Basically, I don't want you to take this guy because we basically want to lynch him. Fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. In a later interview with a reporter, Bonney said that he was unafraid during the incident, saying, quote, "If I only had my Winchester, I'd lick the whole crowd," unquote. Right?
Huh.
And it's this bravado from this kid,
Yeah, for real.
The Las Vegas Gazette ran a story from a jailhouse interview following his capture, and a reporter asked Bonney why he appeared so relaxed. And Bonney replied, quote, "What's the use of looking on the gloomy side of everything? The laugh's just on me this time," unquote. Right?
Well,
He's not wrong.
he's not.
During his short career as an outlaw, Bonney was the subject of numerous U.S. newspaper articles, some as far away as New York.
Dang.
After arriving in Santa Fe, Bonney, seeking clemency, sent Governor Wallace 4 letters over the next 3 months. Wallace refused to intervene, and Bonney went on trial in April of 1881 in Mesilla, New Mexico. Following 2 days of testimony, Bonney was found guilty of Sheriff Brady's murder. It was the only conviction secured against any of the participants in the Lincoln County War.
Damn.
On April 13th, Judge Warren Bristol sentenced him to hang with his execution date scheduled for May 13th, 1881. And according to
Let me guess. He escapes.
Hold on. And according to legend, upon the sentencing, the judge told Bonney that he should hang until he be dead, dead, dead. And Bonnie's response was that you can go to hell, hell, hell.
That's right.
Which is just awesome. I hope that's true.
Yeah, it is.
So following his sentencing, Bonney was moved to Lincoln, where he was held under guard on the top floor of the town courthouse. On the evening of April 28th, 1881, while Pat Garrett was in White Oaks collecting taxes, Deputy Bob Olinger took 5 other prisoners across the street for a meal, leaving another deputy, James Bell, alone with Bonney at the jail.
Insane.
Right? You'd think they'd learn, right?
Not well.
No, maybe not.
I would like to think that they would learn, but I don't think that they would.
So Bonney asked to be taken outside to use the outhouse behind the courthouse, and on their return from the jail, Bonney, who was walking a little bit ahead of Bell up the stairs to his cell, hid around a blind corner, slipped out of his handcuffs, and beat Bell with the loose end of the handcuffs. Yeah. During the ensuing scuffle, Bonney grabbed Bell's revolver and fatally shot him in the back as Bell tried to get away. Bonney, with his legs still shackled, broke into Garrett's office and took a loaded shotgun left behind by Olinger. He then waited at an upstairs window for Olinger to come out responding to the gunshot, and when he did, he called out, "Look up, old boy, and see what you get."
No.
When Olinger looked up, Bonney shot him and killed him.
Yeah.
Now, in the movie, which again I highly recommend, the Olinger guy apparently loaded his shotgun with nickels, right, or dimes or something, and he was talking about how there was $1.80 worth of coins in there, and just give me a reason and whatever. So in the movie, right in this moment when Billy the Kid shoots Olinger, he goes, "The best $1.80 I ever spent."
Oh, that's good.
Such a good movie. So after about an hour, Bonney was able to free himself from his leg irons with an axe. He stole a horse and rode out of town, and according to some stories, he was singing as he left.
Let's go.
Which again, I hope that's true.
I hope it is too. That's so fun.
So while Bonney was on the run, Governor Wallace placed a new $500 bounty on his head. Almost 3 months after his escape, Garrett, responding to rumors that Bonney was in the vicinity of Fort Sumner, left Lincoln with 2 deputies on July 14, 1881, to question Bonney's friend, Pete Maxwell. Maxwell was the son of a land baron, and he spoke with Garrett that same day for several hours. Around midnight, the pair was sitting in Maxwell's darkened bedroom talking when Bonney unexpectedly entered. Now, at this point, accounts vary as to the course of events. But according to Garrett's version, as Bonney entered the room, he failed to recognize Garrett due to the poor lighting. Drawing his revolver and backing away, Bonney asked, "Who is it? Who is it?" in Spanish. I don't know how to say that correctly, so I'm not going to butcher the Spanish language.
Fair enough.
But he was backing away saying, "Who is it? Who is it?" And once Garrett recognized Bonnie's voice, he fired twice. The first bullet struck Bonney in the chest just above his heart, while the second one missed. Garrett's account leaves it unclear whether Bonney was killed instantly or if it took him some time to die. A few hours after the shooting, a local justice of the peace assembled a coroner's jury of 6 people. This is something I didn't know existed before as well.
Yeah.
These jury members interviewed Maxwell and Garrett, and they looked at Bonney's body and the location of the shooting and examined those. The jury certified the body as Bonney's, and according to a local newspaper, a jury foreman said it was the kid's body that we examined.
Damn.
Bonney was given a wake by candlelight, and he was buried the next day, and his grave was denoted with a wooden marker. 5 days after Bonney's killing, Garrett traveled to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to collect the $500 reward offered by Governor Lew Wallace for his capture, dead or alive. William G. Rich, the acting New Mexico governor, refused to pay the reward. So over the next few weeks, residents of Las Vegas, Mesilla, Santa Fe, White Oaks, and other New Mexico cities raised over $7,000 in reward money for Garrett. So even though he's portrayed as a folk hero now, not so much back in the day.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the fact that they raised that much money then blows my mind.
Yeah, that's an insane amount of money.
So a year and 4 days after Bonney's death, the New Mexico Territory Legislature passed a special act to grant Garrett the $500 bounty reward promised, which is ridiculously late at that point.
Yeah, for real.
Because people had began to claim that Garrett unfairly ambushed Bonney, Garrett felt the need to tell his side of the story and called upon a friend of his, a journalist named Marshall Upson, to ghostwrite a book for him. The book, called The Authentic Life of Billy the Kid, was first published in April of 1882. Although only a few copies sold following its release, in time it became a reference for later historians who wrote about Bonney's life. In 1931, Charles W. Four, an unofficial tour guide at Fort Sumter Cemetery, campaigned to raise funds for a permanent marker for the graves of Bonney, O'Folliard, and Beaudry, two other friends of his. As a result of his efforts, a stone memorial marked with the names of the three men and their date of death was erected in the center of the burial area. In 1940, stonecutter James N. Warren of Salida, Colorado, made and donated to the cemetery a new marker for Bonney's grave. It was stolen on February 8, 1981, but was recovered days later in Huntington Beach, California.
That is thematic.
What is crazy, right? I didn't even get that. That's funny. But the crazy part is, you know how heavy these things are, and they made it all the way to California with it?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So New
With
Mexico...
the automobile?
Yeah, with an... Yeah, it'd be even more impressive if it was on a horse.
Yeah.
On a stolen horse. What were these guys thinking?
Literally.
So much for their theme.
For real.
So New Mexico Governor Bruce King arranged for the county sheriff to fly to California to return it to Fort Sumner, where it was reinstalled in May of 1981. Over time, legends have grown claiming that Bonney was not killed and that Garrett staged the incident and death out of friendship so that Bonney could evade the law.
Well, that would be a fun story if that were true.
You know what? We're going to go into it a little bit.
Oh, right.
During the 50 years that followed, a number of men claimed they were Billy the Kid. Most of these claims were easily disproven, but two have remained topics of discussion and debate. In 1948, a Texas man, Ollie P. Roberts, also known as Bushy Bill Roberts, began claiming he was Billy the Kid and went before New Mexico Governor Thomas J. Mabry seeking a pardon. Mabry dismissed Roberts' claims, and Roberts died shortly after. Nevertheless, Hico, Texas, which was Roberts' hometown of residence, capitalized on his claim by opening up a Billy the Kid museum, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
So John Miller, an Arizona man, also claimed that he was Bonney. This was unsupported by his family until 1938, sometime after his death. Miller's body was buried in a state-owned Arizona Pioneers Home Cemetery in Prescott, Arizona. Now, get this shit. In 2005, Miller's teeth and bones were exhumed and examined without permission from the state. So someone went in and took his remains and ran it through for DNA testing.
Damn.
Now, the DNA samples from the remains were sent to a laboratory in Dallas. Miller's DNA were compared against blood samples that were believed to be that of William H. Bonney's. Now, these samples were obtained from the floorboards in an old Lincoln County courthouse and a bench where Bonney's body allegedly had been placed after he was shot.
Hmm.
As you can kind of see it coming, the results weren't exactly useful.
Yeah, that's
Right.
yeah.
But a lot of work went into that,
Yeah,
which is
I
kind of
bet.
crazy, right? So in 2004, researchers sought to exhume the remains of Catherine Antrim, Bonney's mother, whose DNA would be tested and compared against the body that's actually in William Bonney's grave. But as of 2012, the latest source I could find on this, her body has never been exhumed. So that's just talk.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah,
And it's like it's a lot to say like, "Oh, we're just curious and we want to like exhume this body because we're just curious."
right. And that's why, like, it's hard to say because you don't really know what the relationship between Garrett and Billy the Kid was.
Yeah.
Pat Garrett may not have even liked him. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah, so why would he let him go? It's just so hard to call.
It's very hard to justify.
But that is a favorite for most people. They want Billy the Kid to have still been out there.
Yeah.
So in 2007, author and amateur historian Gail Cooper filed a lawsuit against Lincoln County Sheriff's Office under the State Inspection of Public Records Act to produce records of the results of the 2006 DNA test and other forensic evidence collected in the Billy the Kid investigations. People cannot let this go.
Hmm.
In 2012, he was given 133 pages of documents, and again, nothing super conclusive. It doesn't go either way of either supporting the idea or disproving it. It's just ridiculous at this point.
Yeah.
So in 2015, historian Robert Stahl petitioned a district court in Fort Sumner asking that the state of New Mexico actually issue a death certificate for William H. Bonney. Because apparently that's never been done either.
That's wild.
All right, so one of the few remaining artifacts of Bonney's life is a 2 by 3 inch ferrotype photograph of him, attributed to photographer Bill Wittick in late 1879 or early 1880. Now, this is the type of photograph that's done on glass. So the original ferrotype survived because Bonney's friend Dan Dedrick kept it after Bonney's death.
Oh, wow.
It was passed down through Dedrick's family and was copied several times, appearing in numerous publications during the 20th century.
Very cool.
In June of 2011, the original plate was brought to auction and sold for $2.3 million, which is fucking nuts.
Yeah, that's nuts.
The idea that a picture of Billy the Kid is probably worth more than he ever even encountered in his lifetime.
Yes, that is very wild.
So, in a weird way, if he knew that was going to be the stakes, he would have done more crazy shit from the sounds of him. Right.
Truly.
And that is the case of Billy the Kid, aka William H. Bonney.
Wow.
Yeah,
I love a good historical one.
I was going to say these historical ones are fun.
Yeah.
Because they're not like, I mean, obviously if we went in deep on the murders, like he is shooting and killing people, but we don't, because of the timing and the way that there's no information on his victims, it's not as heavy.
Right. Yeah. We're not depressed today.
Yeah, we don't leave like, fuck, man, this is the world we live in.
I'm not like, oh shit, man, I hate being a woman.
Right?
Like often I do.
Which I feel I say to people all the time, I'm like, we weren't even talking about murder. We were just talking about clothing versus makeup versus showering and hair products. And I'm like, it's so much easier to be a guy. It's ridiculous how much easier it is.
It's true. I mean, other things are easier for me. So.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, you're right. Individually, there are degrees. Yes.
Exactly. And it's like, maybe I have to think a little bit more about my skincare than you, but I also get to talk about my feelings and no one ever is like, wow, you're less of a woman because you go to therapy. Like,
yeah, if I ever decided to talk to guy friends about my feelings, there would be a look of sheer terror on their faces.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Where
Yes.
I'm like, I can talk to any human being in the world about my feelings, and they're all like, wow,
Yeah.
that's really tough, huh?
Yeah, well, it's funny because, I work at a bar, and I interact with my regulars. And there are people there who are definitely in need of some serious therapy because they think I'm their therapist or the bartender's their therapist.
Oh, well, yeah, that's classic.
And it's just like, no, man, I'm going to have like a 2 minute conversation with you and then I'm going to go. Like, I feel
You
for
know, it's a
you.
sad state that it's like the bar is the best thing they have.
Yeah. And the sad part is although because of the nature of what I do and the restaurant industry, and, they don't recognize that these girls that work there are being friendly because it's their job to be friendly. So they get delusional about shit.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
we,
yeah, I bet they do.
like we had an incel guy come in a couple weeks ago
Oh,
and
no.
he ambushed one of the girls. I could have fucking punched this guy. So he asked her if she'd be willing to do a TikTok with him. And she was like, sure, whatever, because she's all dressed up and cute and doing her thing. So they get up and they're doing some sort of TikTok. I actually wasn't aware of it when it was happening. Otherwise, I would have been paying much more attention. But
Mm-hmm.
apparently, after they do their little video, he then turns to her and says, now get back to work and get me my food.
What the fuck?
Yeah, just out of nowhere. And as soon as she came back, she was shook and she told me what happened. And I went out there and I was like, dude, that's it. You're done. Go. I'm like, I don't care. Like you don't have to pay for shit. Just get the fuck out of here. I was
Yeah,
pissed.
good.
Was pissed. And then he stood up and started doing this whole the funny part was the girl made out on this, I'll give her that. He pulled out his wallet and he was just throwing money on the table and he was like, "Oh, I was a virgin until I was this many years old." And I'm like, "That has nothing to do with what you just did to that girl. Get the fuck out of my restaurant."
Yep, absolutely.
I was so pissed.
Oh, God, I wish you could have hit him. You probably would have got fired, but I wish you
I
could have hit him.
I definitely would have gotten fired, but the best part was once he got up and started leaving, other guests that witnessed it started saying shit to him, calling him a piece of shit and a fucking loser. So he was basically he had a little walk of shame out of the building.
Good.
Yeah, fuck him. Anyway, we that was a weird tangent at the very end, everybody. So we're gonna wrap this up. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back soon. Once again, I am Janice Dead,
And I'm Joyous Dead.
and we'll see you next week.
Bye.